Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tearing into a medical mystery that's quietly affecting millions of people suffering from hidden leg pain. You see, for decades, there's been this massive disconnect in how we understand and treat chronic venous disease. But a newly published systematic review is finally shedding some much-needed light on what is actually happening right beneath the skin.
So let's dive right into this paradox. Patients are constantly told they have a plumbing problem, right? Their veins just aren't pumping blood back up to the heart like they should. But alongside the swelling and the heavy legs, they consistently report what we can really only describe as electrical symptoms. We're talking burning, tingling, or even a total loss of sensation. So how exactly does a broken pipe lead to a short circuit?
And we urgently need to answer that question, because this is definitely not some rare, obscure condition. Chronic venous disease, or CVD, is massively common. It affects up to 83.6% of adults globally. That's a huge portion of the population walking around with compromised circulation in their legs, totally at risk for progressive damage.
And beyond the immense personal suffering, the economic burden is just staggering. To put it in perspective, if the disease progresses to its absolute worst stage, an active, chronic, non-healing venous leg ulcer, it costs upwards of $34,000 to treat just a single ulcer here in the US. Over in the UK, it runs the National Health Service about £13,500. So getting a grip on the full scope of this disease is absolutely crucial.
Section 1. The hidden leg pain. Let's establish exactly what patients are dealing with day to day and why these symptoms have baffled doctors for so long.
When those venous valves fail, blood just pools in the legs. Now, the heaviness, the swelling, the cramping, that all makes perfect sense for a vein disease. But patients also frequently report burning or paresthesia, that prickling, tingling feeling, and a noticeable drop in their ability to feel things. These are classic hallmarks of neuropathic pain. It strongly suggests that something else entirely is under attack alongside the veins, the peripheral nerves.
Section 2. Investigating the nerve link. To solve this mystery, we turn to our case file, a systematic review that finally puts this connection to the test. This review, freshly published in the Journal of Vascular Surgery, compiles purely objective data. It completely throws out studies that just rely on subjective patient complaints, like someone saying, "My leg aches." Instead, it focuses solely on hard, clinical tests that physically measure nerve function in CVD patients. And the findings? They're honestly staggering. Across the studies they analyzed, the prevalence of peripheral neuropathy ranged from 33% all the way up to a jaw-dropping 100%. Depending on the study, up to every single CVD patient evaluated showed actual physical signs of nerve damage when compared to healthy controls. No way around it, the damage is real. Now, what's really fascinating is how they proved it. The researchers didn't just guess. They used a highly structured mix of sensory and motor tests to map exact deficits. They're using tuning forks and biothiometers to test vibration sensing. They're using these specialized monofilament threads, little fibers that buckle under a specific amount of pressure, to map exactly where a foot is numb. They even ran electrical nerve conduction studies to measure precisely how fast signals were traveling down the legs.
And the evidence showed that this sensory loss wasn't just happening randomly. In fact, one study found that in 53% of patients, there is a distinct loss of sensation in the exact foot bearing a venous ulcer. It directly matched the areas of the leg with the absolute worst skin and vein damage. They practically isolated the venous disease as the culprit right there at the scene of the crime.
Section 3. Mapping the damaged nerves. Having established that neuropathy is definitively present, our investigation has to map out exactly which microscopic wires in the leg are failing.
This brilliantly illustrates the true depth of the damage. Electromyography, vibration, and skin biopsy tests revealed that the disease doesn't just attack one single type of nerve. The thick, insulated A-alpha and A-beta fibers, the ones responsible for letting you feel a light touch or a vibration, are completely malfunctioning. But so are the unmyelinated C fibers. Those are the ones that normally help you sense warmth and release vital healing chemicals into your skin. The entire sensory network is being compromised. It's a system-wide failure. Furthermore, the severity of this nerve death directly correlates with the severity of the venous disease. In one study, using the Neuropathy Disability Score, where a higher number means worse nerve damage, patients with mild venous disease scored an average of 1.00. But those with severe disease, presenting with healed or active ulcers, they scored a 4.96. It's a straight line. The worse the veins get, the worse the nerve damage becomes. Section 4. How veins choke nerves. So, here's the crucial question. How does a broken vein actually physically destroy a nearby nerve? Let's zoom in to the microscopic level.
It builds this incredible domino effect. Think of venous hypertension, the high pressure from those failing valves, like a bursting pipe in your wall. That pressure stretches out the tiny capillaries until they become dilated and leaky. Fluid floods the surrounding tissues, raising the pressure around the nerves. Ultimately, this completely suffocates the nerve fibers, a state called endoneurial hypoxia, which leads directly to nerve cell death, or ischemia.
A major player in this suffocation process involves something called fibrin cuffs. When those capillaries leak, they spill a protein called fibrinogen into the tissue. This forms inflammatory barricades right around the vessels. These cuffs act as microscopic walls, literally choking off the delivery of vital oxygen and nutrients to the nearby peripheral nerves.
But it isn't just physical suffocation. There's a fascinating chemical suspect at play here too. The neuropeptide depletion theory. When you walk, your body uses sympathetic nerves to constrict blood vessels and control pressure. Because the veins in these patients are broken, these nerves are forced to fire constantly. They are working in absolute overdrive. Eventually, they literally run out of gas. They deplete their chemical messengers, like substance P and calcitonin gene-related peptide. Without those chemicals, the skin seriously struggles to regulate blood flow and heal itself.
Section 5. Why this discovery matters. Let's zoom back out from the microscopic level and look at why solving this medical mystery changes everything.
First and foremost, this validates the patients. That burning and numbness, it is not in their heads. They are experiencing real physical nerve damage. Understanding this means doctors can start screening for neuropathy way earlier. It highlights a massive hidden risk factor. If a patient's leg goes numb, they might not feel a minor scrape or shoe rub. That tiny scrape can then rapidly deteriorate into a catastrophic, non-healing venous ulcer. Plus, it means we can finally offer them targeted neuropathic pain management, rather than just throwing standard painkillers at them.
If you take away only one thing from this explainer today, let it be this incredibly powerful conclusion directly from the researchers themselves. Patients presenting with venous-related neurological symptoms should not be dismissed. We have to stop treating just the plumbing and start looking at the entire environment of the leg.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the hidden nerve damage behind venous disease. It leaves us with a truly fascinating frontier for medical science. If we actively protect the nerves early on, can we finally save the legs and prevent the devastating cycle of venous ulcers altogether?